The rain hammered the Brooklyn brownstone like fists on a coffin lid. Each drop an accusation Brandon couldn't dodge. "You're dead to me," his sister Elena spat, her voice cracking like thunder as she shoved the last of his duffel bag out the door, the wooden frame splintering under her grip. In that instant, love wasn't a salvation. It was the blade that severed him from the only family he'd ever known, leaving him soaked and staring at the streetlights blurring into rivers of regret. Brandon stumbled down the stoop, the cold October wind slicing through his thin jacket like Elena's words had sliced his heart. At 25, he'd always been the fixer in their fractured family, the one who patched the leaks in their parents' old Victorian after Dad's heart attack, the one who held Mom's hand through chemo until she slipped away 2 years back. But love? That was the one crack he couldn't seal. Nicholas. The name alone sent a shiver down his spine, warmer than the rain, sharper than the betrayal. He'd met Nick at a dive bar in Williamsburg, the kind where the jukebox played Springsteen unironically and the beer was cheap enough to drown regrets. It was a Tuesday night, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the hum of conversations that felt too real for a city built on facades. Brandon had been nursing a pint, sketching absent-mindedly on a napkin. Rooftop views of the Manhattan skyline, the kind that made you forget the rent was due. That's when Nick slid onto the stool next to him, all easy grin and forearms corded from hauling camera gear. "Artist?" Nick had asked, nodding at the napkin, his voice carrying that Midwestern lilt that cut through the New York noise like a fresh snowfall. Brandon glanced up, caught off guard by eyes the color of aged whiskey. "Nah, just doodling to stay sane." "You?" "Photographer. Chasing light in the shadows." Nick's smile deepened, revealing a dimple that hit Brandon like a gut punch. They talked for hours, about the way the city chewed you up and spat you out, about lost parents and dreams deferred. By closing time, Brandon felt seen, not just looked at. When Nick leaned in, their lips brushing tentative and electric, it was like the bar's dim lights ignited into stars. That spark carried them through stolen weekends, lazy mornings in Nick's cramped Bushwick loft, where sunlight filtered through blackout curtains to paint their skin in gold. They explored hidden gems, ferry rides to Staten Island at dawn, picnics in Prospect Park where Nick would snap candid shots of Brandon laughing, wind-tousled and free. "You're my muse," Nick murmured once, his fingers tracing the curve of Brandon's jaw, camera forgotten on the grass. In those moments, love wasn't a word. It was breath, heartbeat, the quiet certainty that someone chose you despite the chaos. But Elena had always been the anchor, the fierce older sister who'd raised him after Mom faded. 5 years a senior, she'd clawed her way through nursing school while Brandon scraped by on odd jobs, fixing pipes and wiring lights for Manhattan's elite. Their bond was steel, forged in hospital waiting rooms, tempered by shared grief. So when she walked in on them that rainy afternoon, Nick's hand on Brandon's waist in their childhood kitchen, the world tilted. "You're disgusting," she'd hissed, face paling as if she'd seen a ghost. Not anger at first, just shock, raw and unraveling. Brandon froze, Nick pulling away like he'd been burned. "Elena, wait." "No." Her voice steadied into something colder, a scalpel's edge. "This house was Mom and Dad's. Their values. You think you can just taint it?" The words landed like blows, each one echoing the sermons from their conservative Catholic upbringing, the ones Dad had whispered about family first, even as he gasped his last breath. Nick tried to mediate, his voice gentle. "Elena, it's not about tainting anything. It's us. Just us." But she turned on him like he was the intruder. "You stay out of this. You're the poison." To Brandon, she added, quieter, lethal, "Pack your shit. You're not my brother anymore." He begged, God, how he begged. Tears mixing with rain on the stoop, duffel slung over his shoulder like a noose. "Sis, please. This is home." But home was her now. The brownstone with its creaky floors and photos of Mom smiling on the mantel. She slammed the door, the lock clicking like a final judgment. The streets of Brooklyn swallowed him whole that night. He crashed on a buddy's couch in Bed-Stuy, the lumpy futon smelling of takeout and stale dreams. Nick called at dawn, voice thick with sleep and worry. "Babe, come here. We'll figure it out." Brandon went, collapsing into arms that felt like harbor after storm. Nick's loft became sanctuary, exposed brick walls lined with prints of cityscapes, a king-sized bed piled with quilts from thrift stores. They made love in whispers, bodies mapping forgiveness, but the ache lingered. Elena's silence was a ghost, haunting every ringtone that didn't come. Weeks blurred into a fragile normalcy. Brandon picked up freelance gigs, rewiring lofts for tech bros in Dumbo, the irony not lost on him as he untangled their perfect lives. Nick's freelance shoots took him across the boroughs, capturing weddings and protests with equal fervor. Evenings were theirs. Cooking pasta Alfredo from a recipe mom had scribbled in the margins of a cookbook, dancing to vinyl records in socks on the hardwood. "We're building something," Nick said one night, forehead to forehead under the glow of string lights. "Stronger than blood." Brandon wanted to believe it, but doubt crept in like fog off the East River. Late-night scrolls through Elena's Facebook showed her smiling at hospital galas, arm-linked with a new colleague named Marcus, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who fit the mold. No trace of Brandon. Erased. He stopped checking after the first month, but the void echoed. Thanksgiving loomed like a specter. Nick suggested a quiet dinner, just them, turkey from the bodega and pie from Magnolia Bakery. "Screw tradition," he said, kissing Brandon's temple. But as they carved the bird, laughter bubbling over mashed potatoes, Brandon's phone buzzed. A known number. Heart slamming, he answered. "Brandon." Elena's voice, small and frayed. I need to talk." The line crackled with unspoken years. He gripped the table, Nick's hand finding his under the cloth. "About what?" Pause heavy as lead. "Everything. Please. Come home." Home. The word twisted like a knife, but beneath the pain, a flicker, hope, or maybe just the masochistic pull of family. He glanced at Nick, whose eyes held steady trust. "Okay," Brandon whispered, "but not alone." The brownstone looked smaller under the November chill, porch light flickering like a hesitant welcome. Elena opened the door before he knocked, her scrubs rumpled, eyes red-rimmed. No hug, just a nod to Nick, curt but civil. "Come in." The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and regret. Apple pie cooling on the sill, the same recipe from childhood Thanksgivings. They sat at the scarred oak table, steam rising from mugs of cider like peace offerings. Elena's hands trembled as she spoke. "I was wrong. Marcus, he proposed last week. And it hit me. How I'd pushed away the one person who always had my back." Brandon's throat tightened. "You didn't just push, Elena. You buried me." She winced, tears spilling. "I was scared of losing you to this." A glance at Nick, softer now. "Of what people would say at church, at work. But burying you? That buried me too." Nick stayed quiet, his presence a bridge. Forgiveness didn't come easy. Words tumbled out, accusations and apologies weaving like threads in a frayed tapestry. By midnight, as rain pattered the window, something shifted. A tentative arm around shoulders, a shared laugh over old photos. Not whole, but mending. As they left, Elena pressed a key into Brandon's palm. "Your room's still yours. Doors always open." On the subway ride back, Nick squeezed his hand. "Proud of you, Bran." But dawn brought the first crack in the repair. A text from Elena. "Forgot to mention. Marcus's family is traditional. Weddings next spring. Think you can tone it down? For the photos?" The word stung, a velvet betrayal. Brandon deleted it, but the poison seeped. Love, it seemed, forgave but didn't forget. Winter clamped down on Brooklyn like a vice. Snow piling against Nick's loft windows in drifts that muffled the world's roar. Brandon threw himself into work. Long days elbow-deep in electrical panels for a high-rise in Midtown. Sparks flying like his temper when blueprints lied. The key from Elena burned in his pocket. A talisman he fingered but never used. Visits to the brownstone were measured. Sunday brunches where Marcus hovered, all polished charm and veiled glances. His laugh too loud when Brandon mentioned Nick. "You're glowing," Nick teased one frosty morning, zipping Brandon's coat before a shoot in Central Park, Reconciliation looks good on you. Brandon forced a smile, burying the unease. Yeah. Progress. But progress felt like walking a tightrope over the East River, wind whipping from both sides. Elena's wedding planning consumed her. Bridesmaid dresses in blush pink, venue hunts in the Finger Lakes. Invites trickled out, elegant cream cards that landed in Brandon's mailbox like indictments. His read, Mr. Brandon Hayes and guest. Neutral, safe. No +1 for the man who'd stitched his heart back together. Nick took it in stride, ever the optimist. Guest is fine. Means I get to wear that suit you like. The navy one that makes your eyes do that thing. He demonstrated with exaggerated bedroom eyes, pulling Brandon into a spin that ended in a kiss, laughter echoing off the brick. But alone, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy whirl, Brandon wondered if love could weather erasure. The betrayal simmered, bubbling over at a family dinner Elena insisted on. Early Christmas, she called it, to bridge the gaps. The brownstone twinkled with lights, a tree crammed into the living room corner, ornaments from their childhood dangling like fragile truces. Marcus's parents arrived first, salt-of-the-earth types from upstate. Dad a retired cop with a firm handshake, Mom fluttering with Tupperware of lasagna. They eyed Brandon warmly enough. Elena's told us all about her little brother, the handyman hero. But the air thickened when Nick walked in, bearing a bottle of Pinot Noir and a shy smile. Nick's my partner, Brandon said, voice steady despite the pulse in his ears. Elena busied herself with plates, Marcus clapping Nick on the back a beat too hard. Pleasure. Photographer, right? Bet you get all the pretty shots. The words hung, laced with something unspoken. Dinner unfolded in fits, stories of Marcus's glory days on the high school football team, Elena's hospital heroics. Brandon shared a tale of rewiring a celebrity's penthouse, the table chuckling at the diva demands. Nick chimed in with a light-hearted account of photographing a pride parade, rainbow flags waving like defiant blooms. The room stilled. Marcus's mom forked her salad a little too vigorously. Oh, that's colorful, she said, smile brittle as ice. Elena jumped in, voice bright. Nick's got an eye for the dramatic. Remember that sunset series he showed us, Bran? Breathtaking. The pivot worked, conversation lurching back to safer shores. Recipes, weather, the Jets' dismal season. But under the table, Brandon's knee bounced, Nick's hand a grounding weight on his thigh. As pie was served, Marcus's dad cleared his throat. So, boys, you live together? In this big city? Nick nodded, easy as ever. Yeah, Bushwick Loft. Keeps us on our toes. A pause, then the dad. Good on you. Takes grit to make it work. But his eyes flicked to Elena, a question unspoken. Later, washing dishes side by side, Elena leaned in. They're trying, okay? Give it time. Brandon scrubbed a plate harder than needed. Trying looks a lot like tolerance, sis. And I'm tired of being the exhibit. She sighed, suds dripping from her elbows. It's not that simple. Weddings. Traditions. Traditions that cost me my home. The words slipped out, sharp as shattered glass. She recoiled, and guilt twisted in his gut. Sorry, just Nick's not a phase. He's my future. Her eyes softened. I know, and I'm sorry for everything. A hug, fierce and fleeting, salt of tears mixing with dish soap. The real fracture came in January. Frost etching patterns on the loft windows like frozen warnings. Nick landed a gig. Editorial spread for a queer mag, portraits of couples against snowy backdrops. This is it, Bran, he said, excitement lighting his face as he packed his kit. Could open doors to galleries. Brandon beamed, masking the knot in his chest. Elena's bridal shower loomed the next weekend. A sea of lace and mimosas in a Soho loft. She'd begged him to come solo, keep it light, family-focused. And against his better judgment, he agreed. One afternoon, he told Nick. Then I'm yours. The shower was a pastel fever dream. Giggling cousins in matching robes, games involving yarn and baby breaths. Elena glowed, ring catching light like a promise. But midway through, as toasts rang out, Marcus's sister pulled Brandon aside. Elena's so happy, but the guest list for the wedding, we're keeping it small, you know? Intimate. His stomach dropped. Meaning, she shifted, uncomfortable. No plus ones for certain folks, to avoid awkwardness. The room spun, laughter from the cake cutting a mocking chorus. He slipped out to the balcony, city sprawl stretching indifferent below. Dialing Nick, voice cracking. They don't want you there. Silence, then Nick's breath steady. It's their day, not ours. But it's Elena's, my sister's. Tears burned. Am I supposed to pretend you're not? Us? Nick's voice gentled. Hey, breathe. We'll celebrate our way. Park picnic, hot cocoa, the works. It should have been enough. But that night, alone in the loft while Nick scouted locations, Brandon found the wedding invite buried in junk mail. Mr. Brandon Hayes. No and guest. Just his name, solitary as a tombstone. Rage boiled over. He drove to the brownstone at midnight, snow sluicing under tires. Elena answered in pajamas, confusion etching her face. Bran? What's wrong? You uninvited him. The words exploded. Raw. My partner. The man I love. For your intimate bullshit. Her face crumpled. It wasn't me. Marcus's parents, they insisted. I fought it, I swear. Liar. He paced the foyer, ghosts of childhood echoing. You fought by folding. Again. Marcus appeared at the stairs, bleary-eyed. Let's talk this out, buddy. Don't. Brandon whirled. This isn't your call. Elena stepped between them, voice breaking. Please. The wedding's in 3 months. Can't we just get through it? Get through it. Laughter. Bitter. Like you got through disowning me? No, Elena. Choose. Family, or the lie you're marrying into. She froze, tears streaming. I love him, but I love you too. Not enough. He stormed out, door slamming like a guillotine. The drive home blurred through sobs. Radio crooning some country ballad about lost kin. Nick was waiting, arms open. Tell me. Brandon did, words tumbling like avalanche. Nick held him through the night, whispers of we're enough, a lullaby against the storm. But dawn brought resolve. I'm done playing nice, Brandon said, chin lifted. If she wants me at that wedding, it's all of me. Or nothing. February thawed into tentative springs, cherry blossoms hesitant on park slope branches. Elena's calls went unanswered, texts stacking like unanswered prayers. Nick's shoot wrapped to acclaim. A gallery show whispered in art circles. They celebrated with rooftop drinks, city lights winking approval. To us, Nick toasted, glasses clinking. The unbreakable, but unbreakable things bent. A week later, Elena showed at the loft unannounced, rain-soaked and desperate. Marcus called it off. Brandon's heart stuttered. What? Fight over the guest list. He said if I pushed for you, for Nick, he'd walk. She sank onto the couch, defeated. And he did. Nick brewed tea, ever the host, while Brandon processed. Pity warred with anger. You chose him. Every time. I chose fear. Her voice cracked. But losing you? That's the real loss. The air hung heavy, scented with chamomile and old wounds. Forgiveness flickered, faint as a match in wind. What now? Brandon asked softer. She looked up, eyes pleading. Start over? As sisters. He glanced at Nick, who nodded subtly. Maybe, but no more half measures. Spring unfurled, green shoots pushing through concrete cracks. Elena moved out of the brownstone, subletting to a young couple, crashing on friends' couches while job hunting upstate. Brandon and Nick attended her unwedding party. A ironic bash in a dive bar, toasts to dodged bullets. Laughter flowed freer, Elena's arm linking Brandon's without hesitation. Yet shadows lingered. Marcus's text to Elena, begging, then blaming, painted him as the villain, but Brandon saw mirrors. How close had he come to that edge? Love demanded truth, not compromise. As summer heat shimmered off the pavement, Nick proposed, not with rings, but with a vintage camera, loaded with film. "Document our life," he said, kneeling in the loft, voice thick. "Every frame, every flaw. Marry me in the mess." Brandon pulled him up, kiss sealing it. Yes, all in. Elena was first to know, hugging them fierce at a backyard barbecue in Prospect Park. "You deserve this," she whispered. "Both of you." But fate, that cruel curator, had one more twist. Summer in New York was a beast. Humid haze turning subways into saunas, sidewalks baking under relentless sun. Brandon and Nick's engagement buzzed like fireflies. Quiet announcements over beers with friends, a registry at that queer-owned shop in the village, stocking everything from enamelware to leather-bound journals. Planning was patchwork, courthouse vows in fall, a reception in the loft with string lights and soul food catered from Sylvia's. No fuss, just them roots digging deep into chosen soil. Elena dove in as unofficial planner, her nursing shift swapped for clipboard duty. "Vows first," she'd declare over coffee at their corner diner, sketching timelines on napkins. "Make 'em count." Her energy was redemption, fierce and focused, as if scripting their happy ever after could rewrite her own. Marcus faded to footnotes, sporadic emails she deleted unread, a chapter closed with surgical precision. Brandon watched her, wariness thawing into warmth. One sticky afternoon, hauling boxes of fairy lights from a Chelsea warehouse, she paused mid-laugh. "You know, I envied you, that courage to love out loud. I never had it." He bumped her shoulder, sweat beading on brows. "You do now. Look at you, single, slaying." She grinned, but shadows crossed her eyes. Slaying? Or just surviving? The question lingered, unanswered, as they strung lights in the loft that night. Nick captured it all. Candid cliques of Elena teetering on a ladder, Brandon cursing a stubborn bulb. "This is gold," he said, reviewing shots on his laptop. "Our story, frame by frame." But stories had antagonists. September brought a chill wind, not just autumn's bite. Elena's phone rang during a fitting at a tailor on Bleecker. Marcus's number, blocked but persistent via a new line. She silenced it, but tension coiled like smoke. "Tell him to fuck off," Brandon said later, over takeout lo mein. "I have, but he's unraveling." She poked at her noodles. "Says he misses the brownstone, the plans. Blames me for confusing him." Nick arched a brow. "Confusing? Lady, you were crystal." She chuckled, but it rang hollow. Days later, she confessed over wine. A coffee meetup, just to end it clean. Brandon's gut twisted. "Don't go alone. I'm a big girl." Defiant, but her grip on the stem trembled. The call came at 2 a.m. Elena's voice, slurred and shattered. He hit me, Bran. I didn't think he'd." Rage ignited, hot and immediate. Brandon was out the door before Nick could stop him. Cab racing through rain-slick streets to a midtown ER. Elena sat in a curtained bay, lips split, eye blooming purple. "It was an argument," she whispered, ice pack pressed to cheek. "About us. You and Nick. He said I ruined everything by choosing that lifestyle." Brandon's vision tunneled, fists clenching. "I'm calling the cops." "No." Panic flared. "He'll spin it. Say I provoked. Please, just get me out." Nick arrived minutes later, blanket in arms, wrapping her like a shield. They discharged her to the loft, where dawn painted the walls in reluctant gold. Elena curled on the couch, story spilling in fragments. Marcus's obsession, gifts turning to guilt trips, the proposal a cage disguised as commitment. I saw myself in him, hiding, hating the parts that didn't fit. Brandon knelt, hand on hers. "You're not him. You're us." Healing was jagged, therapy sessions Elena squeezed between shifts, a restraining order filed quietly. Brandon and Nick flanked her like sentinels. Walks in the park dissecting the wreckage. "Love shouldn't bruise," Nick said one crisp morning, leaves crunching underfoot. "It should build." Elena nodded, tentative. "Teach me how you two do it." Their engagement party was intimate, rooftop in Bushwick, skyline aglow with twilight. Friends toasted with craft IPAs, Elena's toast wobbling but true. To Brandon and Nick, proof that family isn't blood. It's the ones who stay. Cheers erupted, but as night deepened, Marcus's shadow loomed. A text to Brandon. Tell your sister she's poison. You both are. He blocked it, but sleep evaded. What if he comes for her? He murmured to Nick in bed. City hum a lullaby. Then we fight. Nick's arm tightened. Together. October waned. Leaves turning to fire. Wedding day dawned crisp. Central Park's Bethesda terrace arched like a blessing. Brandon in slim charcoal suit. Nick in vest and bow tie. Eyes locking as they vowed under the angel's gaze. In shadows and light, Nick said, ring sliding cool on finger. You're my constant. I choose you, Brandon echoed. Every broken, beautiful piece. Elena stood witness, tear-streaked but smiling, arm linked with a new friend from group, a soft-spoken barista named Riley, whose quiet strength mirrored her own. Vows exchanged. They kissed to applause, the world narrowing to that press of lips, promise sealed. Reception spilled into laughter, potluck spreads of mac and cheese and ribs, a playlist from Motown to Macklemore. Elena pulled Brandon aside mid-dance, Riley hovering nearby. I'm proud. And seeing you? It healed something in me. He hugged her fierce. We're not done mending. But mending invited meddlers. November's gray skies brought Marcus to the brownstone. Uninvited, unhinged. Elena had moved back, reclaiming space with Riley's help. He pounded the door at dusk, voice booming slurs through the mail slot. Freak show. You think you can erase me? Neighbors peeked from windows, phones out. Elena called Brandon, voice steel. Stay away. Police are coming. But Marcus didn't. He kicked the frame, glass shattering like brittle vows. When sirens wailed, he bolted, but not before scrawling abomination in red marker on the stoop. The assault charge stuck, witnesses, video from a ring cam. Court dates loomed, Elena's testimony a gauntlet. I have to face him, she told Brandon over cocoa in the loft. Bruises faded but scars fresh. End this for good. Nick nodded. We'll be there. Every step. Trial week was trial by fire. December's bite mirroring the cold stares in the Queen's courtroom. Marcus, suited and sorrowful, spun tales of provocation. Love turned toxic by her choices. Elena took the stand, voice unwavering. Choices? Loving my brother, his husband, that's not poison. Your hate is. The judge's gavel fell, guilty, restraining order ironclad. As they left, snow flurrying soft, Marcus lunged from the crowd, restrained by bailiffs. His eyes locked on Brandon. This your fault, Fairy? Words like bullets, but they glanced off. Nick's hand in his, Elena's on the other side. Trio unbroken. Not anymore, Brandon whispered. Holidays healed in halves. Christmas at the brownstone, tree aglow with new ornaments. Photos of the wedding, candid of Riley and Elena sharing a mistletoe kiss. To fresh starts, Elena toasted, glasses clinking. But January whispered warnings. Anonymous letters arrived, poison pen missives decrying sodomite weddings. Postmarked upstate. Marcus's doing, fingerprints smudged but intent clear. Fear flickered, but resolve hardened. We don't hide, Nick said, framing one as art. We expose. Gallery opening for Nick's series, unyielding light, drew crowds to a Soho space, walls alive with their story. Brandon midlaugh, Elena's bruised but defiant portrait, wedding vows etched in shadow play. Elena debuted her own piece, a poem read halting, raw. In casting out, I found my way back. Love, the truest home. Applause thundered, but outside, paparazzi flashbulbs popped. Tabloid fodder from the trial, twisted into scandalous sibling feud. Headlines screamed nurses HRTBREAK. Gay brothers curse? Betrayal's echo amplified. Elena fielded calls from work, whispers in halls. They're painting you as the villain, Brandon said, pacing the loft. She straightened. No, us as villains. But villains don't win, they endure. Endurance tested in February's thaw. Riley proposed to Elena over Valentine's brunch. Simple ring, park bench, forever vowed. Joy bloomed, but so did doubt. What if I'm broken? Elena confided to Brandon, veil in hand for their spring ceremony. You're not. He cupped her face. You're forged. Wedding day rivaled theirs. Botanical gardens in the Bronx. Vines twisting like triumphs. Brandon walked her down the aisle, Nick best man with a wink. Vows rang true. In regret's shadow, I choose light. With you. As rice rained, Marcus's specter faded. Parole denied. Letters ceased. Spring greened. Lives intertwined. Joint brunches, shared holidays. The brownstone a hub for chosen kin. Yet climax brewed in summer's heat. A call from Elena. Frantic. He's out. Early release. And he's coming for the house. The storm broke. August scorched the city. Air thick as molasses. Tempers fraying like old wiring. Brandon's freelance dried up. Renovations stalled by heat waves. Clients fleeing to Hampton's Heights. He and Nick scraped by on Nick's gallery residuals. Nights tallying bills under the fan's indifferent whirl. Elena and Riley's honeymoon glow dimmed under the threat. Marcus paroled after 6 months. Good behavior. A joke inked in bureaucracy. His PO warned Elena. Standard protocol. But the subtext screamed. Watch your back. They fortified. New locks on the brownstone. A ring cam upgrade. Self-defense class in a church basement where punches landed like prayers. Hit here. The instructor barked, demonstrating on pads. And run. Elena absorbed it. Fists taped. Eyes fierce. Riley hovered. Worry etching lines around her eyes. This ends now, she said, arm around Elena's waist. Brandon echoed it. But sleep evaded. Dreams tangled with Marcus's snarls. Nick woke him once, sweat-soaked. He's not taking our peace. Peace. Brandon laughed. Hollow. Feels like borrowed time. Elena's call shattered the fragile calm. A Friday dusk, voice breathless. He's here. Outside. Yelling. Brandon bolted. Nick in tow. Cab weaving through gridlock. The brownstone loomed. Floodlights casting Marcus's silhouette long and lunatic. He paced the sidewalk. Megaphones scavenged from God knows where blaring. Sinners! Repent or burn. Neighbors clustered. Phones filming the spectacle. Police arrived, sirens blazing. But Marcus dropped the device. Hands up. Feigning calm. Just exercising free speech, officers. About family values. Elena peered from the window, Riley's hand on her shoulder. Brandon pushed through the gawkers, voice low thunder. Leave. Now. Marcus's eyes locked. Venomous. You. This all started with you. Poisoning her against me. Poison. Brandon stepped closer, cops flanking. You did that yourself. A sneer. Fag. Think marriage makes you holy? Your abomination. The word hung, crowd murmuring. Nick tensed beside him, but Brandon held ground. Abomination is hate like yours. Love? That's eternal. Cuffs clicked. Marcus hauled away. Public disturbance, violation of order. But his parting shot lingered. This ain't over, Hayes. Blood calls to blood. Elena collapsed inside, sobs racking. He said. He'd make sure no one forgets. Forgets what? Nick brewed tea, ever the anchor. Us. The shame. She wiped her face. I amplified it once. Now it's boomerang. Forgiveness revisited. Raw. Brandon knelt. Shame's his weapon. We don't carry it. September's equinox brought uneasy truce. Marcus's antics earned him house arrest. Ankle monitor beeping like a bomb's tick. Elena sold the brownstone. Proceeds split for therapy funds and a down payment on a co-op in Crown Heights. Fresh walls, she said, packing boxes with Riley. No ghosts. Brandon helped, unearthing relics. Dad's old toolbox, Mom's recipe tin. One evening, amid dust motes dancing in slanted light, Elena unearthed a letter. Yellowed envelope, Mom's script. To my children. Love isn't chosen. It's given. Guard it fiercely. Tears welled. She knew. About you even then. Brandon nodded, throat tight. Wished she'd said it. She did. In actions. Elena hugged him. Like I'm trying now. Fall deepened. Leaves carpeting paths in gold. Nick's next series, Resilient Threads, weaved their tapestry. Elena's scar-faded portrait, Brandon and Nick mid-embrace, Riley's quiet gaze. Opening night in Chelsea Drew Press, not scandal but substance. Out magazine profile on Family Reclaimed. Reviews glowed, but backlash brewed online. Trolls dredging trial dirt. Marcus's jailhouse manifestos leaked to fringe sites. Death to deviance. One read, # family first. Elena's hospital fielded complaints. Patients requesting no gay sympathizers. She quit mid-shift, badge tossed on the desk. Can't heal if I'm the wound. Riley found her a gig at a clinic in Harlem, queer-friendly, holistic. You're calling, she said, kissing Elena's temple. Us healing us. Brandon's world tilted too. A client gig soured. Rewiring a church in Queens. Pastor's sermon mid-job. Modern Sodom. Fired on spot. Check bounced. Bigots everywhere. He vented to Nick over diner fries. Nick squeezed his hand. Then we build our own. Winter whispered in early. First snow dusting the loft like powdered sugar. Holiday cards arrived. Elena's first from the clinic. Patient's thanks scribbled in crayon. They hosted solstice. Mulled wine, you'll log crackling. Stories swapped like gifts. Elena shared a tale from group. Forgiving myself. Hardest patient yet. Riley laughed. Stubborn case. Laughter wove warmth, but December's solstice moon hid claws. Christmas Eve. A package thudded on the stoop. Anonymous. Addressed to the Haze Freaks. Inside photos. Stolen shots. Brandon and Nick kissing in the park. Elena and Riley hand in hand at brunch. Slashed with red marker. Exposed. Panic surged. Fingerprints rushed to NYPD. Marcus's prints. Fresh from violation. Raid at dawn. His upstate trailer. Walls papered in printouts. Shrine to grudge. He planned it, the detective said, bagging evidence. Stalking logs. Hit list. Hit list. The words chilled. Names circled. Brandon, Nick, Elena, Riley. Safe house whispers, witness protection light. Courtesy of Elena's old precinct buddy. But they refused. Hiding's his win, Brandon said, voice steel. We stand. New Year's dawn defiant. Resolution bonfire in Prospect Park. Letters to self burned in flames. To visibility, Nick toasted, arm around Brandon. But visibility invited vipers. January's cold snap froze pipes. Brandon's handyman rep drawing a call. Emergency fix at a community center in Bed-Stuy. Arriving, he found the space alive. Youth group, rainbow flags fluttering. The director, a burly ex-Marine named Theo, clasped his hand. Heard about your story. From the mag, need heroes like you. The job stretched. Wiring for a new art room. Kids peeking as Brandon spliced. One boy, Jamal, 12 and wide-eyed, handed him a drawing. Two men holding hands under stars. Like you and your husband? Brandon's chest tightened. Yeah, like us. Word spread. Gigs followed, queer centers, pride orgs. Nick's photos hung in those spaces. Elena volunteered shifts. Riley's barista spot became hub, coffee-fueled strategy sessions. Climax crested in February's fury. Blizzard burying the burrows, power outages blacking skies. Marcus slipped monitor, vanishing into whiteout. Alerts pinged, fugitive at large. Approach with caution. They hunkered. Loft barricaded. Elena and Riley crashing for safety. Candles flickered. Board games a thin veil over fear. Stories, Elena suggested, voice steady. To keep the dark at bay. Brandon started. Their first fight, makeup in the rain. Nick followed. Proposal nerves. Ring hidden in camera bag. Riley's turn. Meeting Elena. Like finding home in a storm. Elena's voice quavered. The night I cast you out. Regret hit like lightning. But you came back. Why? Brandon met her eyes, candlelight dancing. Because love doesn't quit, even when it hurts. Midnight brought the breach, doorbell cam beeping. Marcus's face twisted in snow. Let me in. Family talk. 911 dispatched, but he rammed the door, wood groaning. They retreated to bedroom, baseball bat gripped. Sirens neared, but Marcus burst through. Eyes wild, knife glinting. You ruined her, he roared, lunging at Brandon. Chaos erupted. Nick tackling, Elena screaming, Riley dialing. Brandon swung the bat, glancing blow. Marcus staggered, knife skittering. Cops swarmed, tasers popping, down he went, curses fading to cuffs. In the aftermath, ER checks. Bruises, no breaks. Elena held Brandon's hand, drip beeping. You saved us. We did. Nick's kiss to his brow. All of us. Marcus's trial loomed, attempted murder, stalking. Testimony wove tight. Elena's poise, Brandon's calm recount, Nick's photos as evidence. Verdict. Life. No parole. Gavel fell like liberation. Spring bloomed unscarred. Cherry petals confetti. Elena's clinic thrived, a haven for the hurt. Brandon's business, Hayes Home Heroes, expanded, queer-owned banner proud. Nick's book deal, Threads of Us, bestseller in memoirs. Anniversary trip, cabin in the Catskills, no tech, just trails and talks. Elena and Riley joined for a weekend, for souls synced. One evening, fire crackling, Elena raised a glass. To regret's door. Knocked, answered, left open. Brandon clinked, Nick's hand in his. To love, the only home. But home, they learned, was verb built daily, brick by forgiveness, mortar of truth. Summer returned gentler, heat waves tempered by breezes off the sound. Brandon's days filled with calls, families needing not just wires fixed, but lives rewired. Installing smart lights for a trans teen's safe space, surge protectors for a shelter's communal kitchen. You're more than handyman, a client said, slipping extra cash. Your hope. Nick's book tour kicked off. Readings in indie bookstores from Brooklyn to Boston. Crowds leaning in for the raw. Love isn't plotless. It's the scars that story. Elena tagged along for the NYC leg, front row beaming. My brother's words, she'd introduce, owning the narrative. Riley's coffee shop evolved, brewed awakening. Walls lined with local art, open mics for queer voices. Evenings there became ritual. For at a corner table, lattes steaming, dissecting days. Jamal's exhibit. Brandon shared one humid night, sold 3 pieces. Kids a star. Elena grinned. Like his mentor. Laughter flowed. Easy now, bonds burnished by fire. But undercurrents stirred. Elena's clinic hit turbulence. Funding cuts, board whispers of controversial staff. They're eyeing me, she confessed over pie at the diner, fork stabbing crust. The trial made headlines. Suddenly, I'm liability. Riley's jaw set. Fight it. With what? Lawsuits. Elena sighed. Maybe it's time for more. The seed sprouted. Nonprofit dream. Regrets redemption. Counseling for families fractured by rejection. Brandon crunched numbers. Nick designed logos. Riley sourced grants. Launch gala in the loft. Donors mingling with survivors. Toasts to second chances. Elena spoke, voice carrying. I cast out my brother for love. Nearly lost everything. But doors open when regret knocks. If we answer. Applause swelled, checks signed. Fall painted the city in ambers. Crunch under boots a symphony. Their first joint Thanksgiving, brownstone sold, but spirit reclaimed in the co-op's airy kitchen. Turkey roasted, sides potluck. Nick's cornbread, Riley's greens, Elena's pie. No head-of-table patriarch. Just circle, hands linked in grace. Gratitude circle turned confessional. For Nick's patience, Brandon started, eyes misty. When I doubted us. For Elena's fight, Nick added. Teaching me family evolves. Riley, for love's quiet strength. Elena last, voice thick. For forgiveness. Mine mostly. Tears fell with the stuffing, but joy rose like yeast. Post-feast walks in the park, scarves whipping, plans unfurled. Non-profit expansion, book sequel, perhaps kids, adoption whispers. Winter's hush brought introspection. Snow-blanketed rooftops, muffling horns to hum. New Year's resolution. Vulnerability pact, weekly check-ins, no armor. Bears the soul, Nick quipped, but honored it, letters penned like lifelines. January thawed revelations. Elena discovered pregnancy, Riley's donor choice, clinic miracle. Aunt Bran? She teased, ultrasound wand waving. Brandon hooped, hugging fierce. Uncle duties start now. Nick's series evolved, generations unbound, portraits of queer families. Jamal modeled, gap-toothed grin defiant. Exhibit in MoMA's community wing. Critics lauding, tender truths. But truth's blade cut both ways. February's Valentine's. A card arrived. No sender. Pink envelope innocuous. Inside, blood's thicker. She's lying. Photo clipped. Elena with Marcus, old engagement shot, circled menacing. Paranoia prickled. Old news. Brandon dismissed, but unease gnawed. Elena waved it off. Ghosts. Ignore. March's Ides brought bloom. Baby shower in the co-op, blues and yellows, games silly as sin. Gifts piled, tiny onesies, books of fables. Elena glowed, hand on bump. Naming her after Mom, Grace. Riley beamed. Fitting. Mid-laughter, Elena winced, clutching side. Braxton Hicks, she breathed, but ambulance lights flashed anyway. Preterm scare, bed rest ordered. Vigil in the hospital. Beeps steadying hearts. She's fighter, Brandon whispered to Nick, corridor coffee bitter. Like her mom's. Discharge brought nest building. Nursery painted sage, mobile of stars. Nonprofit hit stride. First retreat in the Poconos. Families mending under pines. Elena led sessions from home, voice via Zoom. Regret isn't end. It's edit. Spring equinox aligned stars. Grace arrived April Fools. Tiny cry fooling no one into doubt. Hospital room bloomed. Brandon cradling. Nick snapping first photos. Riley and Elena entwined. She's perfect, Brandon murmured, finger in fist grip. Elena nodded, exhausted bliss. Our legacy. Summer solstice circled back. Picnic in the park. Grace gurgling on blanket. Stories swapped. Marcus a footnote, trial appeals denied. Free, Elena said, toes in grass. But freedom's flip. Media dredged old dirt. Podcast on the Hayes scandal. Sensational slop. Guests speculating betrayal. Elena's fury. They twist our triumph. Counter it, Nick urged. Your story, your mic. Podcast launched. Doors ajar. Raw talks on rejection's ripple. First EP. Elena and Brandon. Voices overlapping hurt to hope. Downloads surged, invites followed, TEDx panels. Fall's harvest reaped abundance. Grace's christening. No church, but circle under oaks. Vows secular. We promise wonder, not walls. Thanksgiving tableau. High chair edition. Mashed peas flying. Gratitude deepened. For Grace's light. Winter wrapped gentle, solstice strings. Carols queerified. New Year's. Letters burned. Intentions etched. Climax's echo faded, but conflict's child. Grace's first steps toward Elena, who caught her, tears sparkling. You chose me. Always, the toddler babbled, approximating. Yet, in quiet moments, Brandon pondered betrayal's bloom. Not Marcus's rage, but Elena's initial cut. The sister sword that scarred deepest. Did it make us stronger? He asked Nick one snowy eve, fire popping. Nick traced his ring. Scars do. They map the mend. January's renewal. Nonprofit's first gala. Grace Flower Girl in Tool. Elena's speech. From casting out to carrying in love's long arc. Donors rose, checks flowed. Post-party, loft dance. Slow spins, Grace dozing in arms. February's heart. Anniversary vow renewal, courtyard, snow-dusted. Still choose. they echoed. Riley's book. Recipes laced with lore, hearts on plates. Signing tour, Grace mascot. March Madness. Grace's fever, Erdash, croup, conquered. Huddle home, stronger knit. April showers. Spring clean, attic unearthed. Mom's letter reread, circled. Love humanizes. May's maypole, park frolic, Grace toddling. Elena's clinic expanded. Satellite for rural kin. June's pride. Floats and flags. Family unit marching. Banners bold. Love wins, always. July's heat. Beach escape. Coney boardwalk. Cotton candy laughs. Ferris wheel kisses. August's apex. Book launch party. Threads eternal. Crowds clamored. Grace page-turner. But September's whisper. Anonymous note. Slipped under door. She never forgave. Watch her back. Elena's handwriting? No, forged scrawl. Marcus's ghost via proxy. Doubt seated. Confrontation over cider? Is it true? Lingering regret. Elena's face crumpled. I forgave you, myself. But the pain is shaped, doesn't erase. Truth's bomb shapes us all. October's veil, harvest fest, pumpkins carved with care. Grace's first word, Unca. November's thanks, table fuller, stories richer. December's close, solstice circle, light strung. Elena's gift, locket, mom's photo inside. Full circle. New Year's dawn. Resolutions renewed, arms linked. Life's plot twisted gentle now. Love's drama. Emotions tied. Romance's rhythm. Humanity's hum. Yet, in quiet, Brandon knew. Betrayal's door, once slammed, swung wide. Regret entered, but so did grace. January's frost etched windows like lace, but warmth bloomed within. Grace's second birthday, pink balloons bobbing, cake smeared on chubby cheeks. Elena chased her with a napkin, laughter echoing off co-op walls. Look at her go! Brandon marveled, video rolling on his phone. Nick ruffled his hair. Future track star. Or CEO. Or both. Riley plated seconds, eyes soft on the scene. Our little revolution. The year unfolded in milestones. Grace's preschool tour, alphabet blocks stacking dreams. Brandon's business branched, Hayes builds bridges, workshops teaching trades to queer youth. Jamal apprenticed, tools in hand. Oh, you man. No debt, Brandon replied. Pay forward. Nick's docuseries greenlit, unbound, streaming tales of reclaimed kin. Elena narrated an EP, voice steady. Regret knocked. I answered with open arms. Spring's thaw mirrored thaw within. Nonprofit retreat. Families hiking Adirondacks. Bonfires birthing bonds. One dad, teary. Your story gave me courage. Thanked my son today. Elena hugged him. That's the win. Summer's symphony. Coney again, waves lapping, Grace's toes in sand. Ice cream drips, sunset sails, Nick's camera capturing eternity. Fall's palette. Leaf peeping drive upstate, Grace pointing. Red. Pretty. Thanksgiving tableau evolved, extended kin, Theo from the center, Jamal's mom, clinic colleagues. Table groaned, talks transcended. Winter's hush. Solstice ritual. Candles lit for lost ones. Mom, Dad, even Marcus's shadow, pitted now. To understanding, Elena toasted. New Year's. Intentions journaled. Shared. Grace's scrawl happy. Yet, conflict's quiet cousin stirred. Elena's board pressured. Expand or fold. Funds tight. Sell out. She vented over brunch, Grace napping. Never, Brandon said. Bootstrap. Crowdfund launched. Doors ajar. Stories pouring in. Goal smashed. Satellite clinic born in Buffalo. February's fire. Grace's fever redux. But pediatrician calm. Rosila, routine. Sleepless nights forged deeper. Songs sung. Stories spun. Marches bloom. Proposal anniversary. Dinner at their first bar. Jukebox crooning. Still sparks. Nick whispered. Kiss salt-kissed. April's jest. Grace's prank. mustard in cookies. Chaos, then cuddles. May's mothers. Elena and Riley's day, spa pamper, Grace crown bearer. June's jubilee. Pride grander, float sponsored, Grace waving rainbow flag. July's joy, family vaki, Cape Cod clams, kite strings tangled like ties. August's art. Nick's mural, Brooklyn wall, figures entwined. Brothers, sisters, lovers. September's song. Elena's album. Poetry set to indie folk. Knox answered. Release concert. Grace on lap. Clapping offbeat. October's oasis. Harvest fair. Hayrides. Grace's pumpkin prize. November's nurture. Thanksgiving. Letters read. 4 scars that shine. December's dance. Solstice waltz. Grace twirling in arms. Cycle spun, but climax's gift. Letter from Marcus. Parole board mercy. Therapy mandated. I was wrong. Hate blinded. Forgive. Elena read aloud, voice quaver. What say you? Brandon pondered. Humanity's arc. Room for him? Nick nodded. If he earns. Reply penned. Doors ajar. Walk through. No response, but peace settled. Like snow soft. Spring's renewal. Grace's kindergarten backpack slung. Big girl, she declared. Summer's sore. Camp for kids, Brandon counselor, campfires confiding. Fall's flourish, book 2, echoes of entry. Winter's weave, holidays hybrid, tradition tweaked, queer carols. New Year's, circle complete, hands held. To tomorrow's, years layered. Grace's graduations, weddings whispered. Elena's clinics coast to coast. Brandon's empire trades for all. Nick's lens, legacy. One eve, porch swing creaking, elders now, gray threading hair. Grace, grown, with her own. Tell the story. Brandon smiled, Nick's hand warm. Once, a sister cast out for love, but regret knocked. And we answered, not with walls but windows. Elena, nearby, chimed, wide open. Fade to stars, city pulse eternal. Love's tale, unfinished, human, heartfelt, home. In the end, not tragedy's toll, but triumph's tender hold. Doors, once barred, beckoned boundless.